All right, we are live. Welcome on, brother.
Thank you so much.
So, for those that don't know, this is Eric or HolisticEric on Instagram, and are you on Twitter as well, or X
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. Yeah, yeah,
at HolisticEric as well?
yeah, yeah. The same name everywhere.
Awesome, awesome, dude. Well, how's Thailand going, dude?
It's great. It's great. A lot of sun, a lot of beaches. Yesterday I
Mhm.
was on a boat trip around for a few islands and snorkeling and stuff like that. Just enjoying the weather. Today it's a bit cloudy, but it's great. It's great. And where are you right now?
Yeah, it's. I'm in Bali at the moment, so just got here a week ago,
Uh,
and then just only here for a couple of weeks, and then back to Australia, for a little bit just before Christmas, and then going to head home to New Zealand for Christmas, then back to Australia is the plan at the moment. But yeah, the tropical lifestyle is good, right? Have you noticed a difference between the sort of lifestyle? Obviously, it's probably a big difference, right? Between the tropics where you are now in Thailand and where you're from in Sweden.
Yeah, yeah. I've noticed a lot. There's a big difference in like the quality of the air is a bit
Mm-hmm.
how do you say it? It's a lot hotter, of course. In Sweden, it's like -1 degree Celsius right now, so it's a lot more comfortable. And then the
Yeah,
beaches
a
is
bit more.
yeah, yeah. Here it's like 31 degrees Celsius, so it's a big difference. And everything just feels nice here. When I got here, my skin was a bit dry from the cold air in Sweden, but it's all gone in just
Mm-hmm.
1 or 2 days, and the hair is getting a lot better,
Yeah,
and you know you feel a lot more relaxed when you're in this type of environment.
yeah, 100%. The colder climate is good, but I feel like the tropical climate is really where you can thrive a bit more because you just have more access to the sun. Basically is the main thing. More access to the beach because you can swim all the time. So the beaches are
Yeah,
so much better obviously in Thailand than Sweden, right? And getting out of
yeah.
-1 degrees does it ever get like 30 in Sweden, or is it kind of the max it gets is like 20? I
In
think it
ra-
was like 25 when I was there.
yeah, yeah. In rare cases, it's go over 30, but most of the time it's like 24, 25 in the summer.
How are you acclimatizing to the new climate?
Well, there's a big difference. Like the sun is a lot stronger here, so you have to be careful when you're used to um, the not so strong sun in Sweden. So I'm doing bit by bit, not
Hmm.
staying in the sun too much, um, and um, and sort of getting used to um, the sun. So yeah,
Mm.
yeah, and I'm using a bit of clothes
Yeah,
and stuff like that. No sunscreen, of course.
yeah, yeah, of course, right. And that's a major one that so many people mess up when they do, even when they're just on holiday, right? They'll be in the office 51 weeks a year, under artificial light, getting maybe 20 minutes of sun exposure a day, not midday sun. And then they go on holiday either to Mexico or they go to Florida or even the tropics, Thailand, and they just get absolutely destroyed because they sit in the sun for 12 hours on the first day. And then they wonder why they're getting sunburn. And they're like, and it reinforces that fear of the sun, right? But as people just approach it at the complete wrong angle, you want to think about it, you want to work with the sun. Don't want to be hiding away from it for 95% of your year and then just going full tilt, maximum sun. You're obviously going to get burnt. And that
Yeah,
reinforces that fear that so many people have where they need to put more sunscreen on, stay out of the sun for more, and then they're going to spend more time at the office and be afraid of the beach. And it's just the wrong way to go about it. So you're doing it perfect, you know, as you're transitioning from the colder climate where the sun isn't as intense, at least the UV isn't as intense.
yeah.
And Sweden, just slowly, incrementally improving or increasing the sun exposure. So yeah, good on you for doing that. And tell us a little bit about, you know, the last, say, few months since you were in Sweden, and then now you've, gone off to Thailand, you're doing online coaching, what's that transition been like from, I guess, breaking free of that normal working life that most people live, right? Because I'm sure so many people listening to this will probably be in the position that you were 6 months ago, right? Or at the start of the year, just working a job just to make money, right? And now here you are in Thailand, coaching online, have an online business. So tell us what that transition was like mentally for you. Like how was that?
So there's a big difference. The Before I worked at a company, a factory, and then I decided to make a change. And I've always trained, like I've always done some training and learning about the health and all of that. And then I decided to start my own online coaching, and then the last few months I've just worked on that and started coaching my clients. And after that, now I'm here in Thailand, and it's a big relief. There's a lot of stress when you work at a company and you just go paycheck to paycheck all the time, and you just can relax on another level, and you feel more free when you're out here and don't have all those has to do. You have to go to work and all of that. This is what I enjoy to do, and you wake up here every day to do something new and exciting, and then you get more creative. So yeah, it's really good.
And did you have like, I guess at the start, did you have any pushback from, I don't know, coworkers or family, friends, your partner or anything like that when you were trying to change things up?
Of course, a lot of people doubted me and laughed when I said I wanted to be a coach, and thought it was funny and that I would never be able to get any clients. But you just have to prove to yourself that you can, and everyone can if you try hard enough and stay consistent. That's the most important part.
Yeah, 100%. It's just the same as building your chest or, sculpting your physique. You just need to be consistent with simple things. Honestly, it's not that hard. It's just simple things that you continue to do and be consistent with it. And it's obviously a massive bonus if you like doing those things. It makes it very easy to be consistent with. And consistency usually isn't an issue for people, because they go to work every day. And even if they hate their job, they still go there. So consistency isn't the issue. It's the appetite for risk, I feel, is the biggest issue for most people, to break out of what they might not enjoy doing, or their standard of living, where they go to work, like you said, living paycheck to paycheck, or even if you're doing well for yourself, or if you hate what you're doing, people are still consistent with doing that. They just, somehow the consistency crumbles when a little bit of risk is involved, because now they have to be consistent with taking risk. And then they're the one that is basically on the receiving end of that risk if it does go wrong. But the way I look at it is you should look at that as a positive thing, because you are in control of the outcome. If it fails or something doesn't work, it's all because you didn't try hard enough, or you didn't have the skill, or you didn't understand, or you didn't speak to the right people. And that's a great thing, because that means that you can do better next time. But with, the job and standard jobs, people get laid off, and sometimes it's completely not their fault, and they're out of work for something they didn't even take a risk to do it, and they're still bearing the negative effect from that, or the negative consequence, right? So it's just that appetite for risk I think most people are missing. And it's not like the smartest people typically are the ones with the lowest appetite for risk. I know some extremely intelligent people, but they're still just living that standard life, and they don't like it. And I know that for a fact. So they've told me that they really hate what they're doing. Their life is really not enjoyable, and they're hyper intelligent, but that appetite for risk just isn't there. And then you can have like far left curve, like almost borderline like retarded people that just have a crazy appetite for risk, and they can make it work with enough effort that they put in. It doesn't really matter how smart you are. If you just put enough effort into it and you allow yourself to take on that risk, you'll 100% succeed. So that's a massive one. I think most people, it's lost on most people. People think that you need to have a trust fund, you need to have a huge safety net, you need to be super intelligent, you need to have the best new product and whatever, right? They think the stars have to align for this to happen, but it's all just putting effort in, and it doesn't really matter these other things. Obviously, it's going to help if you have a $10 million trust fund to test products with and run ads with, but it's not the be all end all. You don't have to have these qualities. It's more so you'd have to have that appetite for risk and be okay with the consequences from those risks. Like the worst thing that could ever happen is the business or whatever you try to do fails, and you basically just end up in the same place you're in now. Whereas the best case scenario, when you take the risk, is you live exactly how you want to live. And then on the flip side of things, if you don't take the risk, the best case scenario is you're in the same position you are now, and the worst case scenario is you're in the same position right now. So
Yeah.
when you look at it like that, I feel like it's a no-brainer what most people should do, and they should just pick what they enjoy doing, what they're good at, and just start running with it and putting effort into that thing, rather than putting all this effort into something that they truly don't enjoy, which could be their day-to-day job.
Yeah, yeah. And also, if you lose, then you just need some self-analysis, and you will recognize what you did wrong and learn from it, and then grow bigger, and you will get better next time. So it will only be good even if you fail. There are no bad scenarios.
Exactly, right? Yeah, and this exactly right. There's literally like nothing that can go wrong, right? When you look at it through that lens, but so many people look at it through the lens that they have everything to lose, and they stay in that mindset, and then they're never going to just switch out of it. Whereas the better approach to take is what you're saying here is basically what do you have to lose? The worst case scenario is you're going to gain skills from trying to start something or trying to do what you enjoy doing, or at the very least you're going to enjoy your time doing it, and you're going to be free of the thing that is sucking energy away from you, which might be your day-to-day job, right? So that's another real big one. And another thing I wanted to kind of talk to you about is, since how long ago did you get into Thailand? Was it like a week ago or something like that?
Yeah, 5 days, I think.
And have you been obviously in the ocean? Like, are you near the beach?
Yeah,
Like,
of course.
where are you in Thailand?
I'm in a city called Krabi, so it's really close to the beach, like 1 kilometer.
Okay, nice. And you've been, I'm assuming you've probably been down at the beach, pretty often.
Of course, every day, all day.
Yeah, nice. Good to hear, man. And have you noticed that difference? I feel, well, Sweden's pretty good, right? Sweden, there's so much nature, at least where I was in Sweden, there's forest, there's grass everywhere. It actually reminds me quite a lot of home in New Zealand. There's a lot of farmland, there's a lot of nature there. And then what I was going to ask is, did you notice the difference in the biome and the nature, and how it made you feel in terms of your energy levels and just the energy that you were receiving in from your environment?
Yeah, a lot. The biggest difference I've noticed is the quality of the water, because in Sweden we have this, where there's sweet waters from the small lakes, and there's coming salt water from Denmark and under there. So the water is like a mix of sweet and salt. So, and the perfect one for me is only salt. So, and here it's just salt water, and you feel the skin and the hair and everything, and the skin absorbs all the minerals, and you can really feel the difference in the energy and everything like that. And also, there's a lot of cool nature here, and there's a lot of mountains and different trees and stuff like that. So you just feel more creative when you see all of these amazing things.
Yeah, totally. When you're surrounded by that novel environment, like it's new to you, it really allows that creative energy to sort of come in, right? Because if you're just stuck with the same view every day, no matter how beautiful it is, eventually, it just becomes normal and you get desensitized to it. But when you have that novel environment, that new, visual inputs every day, because, you're kind of exploring and discovering this new place, you get so much more creative energy in there because you're getting that new look on everything. You start looking at things differently and thinking about things differently. And I feel like it's a great way to tap into that creative energy and seeing these other, not just the culture, but seeing the trees and the plants and the animals and everything and how it all kind of coexists. And then you come in from across the world, and then you're just left in this field of energy of the entire bio that is currently, or ecosystem that's currently existing in this new location. And then you have to kind of fit in there and then receive that energy from all these different places. And it really, at least for myself, it allows me to tap into these other creative avenues and think about things slightly differently. Are you getting that as well?
Yeah, yeah, really much, really much. Everywhere I go, it's like, oh, this is
Mm.
nice, and this is nice, and this is different from where I'm come from, and this would
Mhm.
never work in Sweden, and whoa, Sweden would have done this in a really different way. So just get these ideas all the time, and then it creates a pattern when we're just thinking in a creative mind.
100%. And that creative pattern is so beneficial, especially doing what you're doing, right? Is it allows you to tap into that creative energy a bit more and be more yourself, I think, because you can actually delve into a couple other thought processes that you may not have ever come across before if you're just in that same, visual or physical environment that you get so accustomed to, right? Which it's really, really beneficial, especially for creating things. And I really encourage like a lot of people, I get these messages most days is like, how do I stop consuming, and the opposite, basically the antithesis of consuming is creating, just be more creative. And that doesn't mean creating content or anything like that. I mean, it can, but a great thing to do is just start writing things on a piece of paper with a pencil or a pen, or start drawing little things, or start putting little blocks together, like when we were kids, we're so creative in terms of you're playing with the Legos, you're building things with your hands, you're painting all the time. You're doing all these like creative endeavors. And then when people start getting older, they get cut off from that, creative energy massively. And then they switch to this consumer mindset where they're only consuming, obviously food, they're consuming entertainment, they're consuming everything. All they do is like a black hole of consumption rather than, a star of creation, right? And trying to switch from that black hole to that star it can be quite difficult because there's such a massive pull from that consumption, because you get that fake reward that you think you've accomplished something when you're consuming it. You
Yeah,
see a great body on Instagram, and you think, and you try to live vicariously through these people, and you almost trick yourself into thinking you're doing that. You're watching a workout or whatever it may be, or you see a pretty girl online, you trick your brain into thinking that, you're with this pretty girl or whatever the new location is. Oh, that's so beautiful. And then you trick your brain into thinking you've gone and trekked there and gone on that adventure, right? And it's this like destructive consuming pattern that leads so many people to stay in those same habits, right? Whereas the other side of things, the flip side, where you're that creative star and you're giving out energy rather than pulling it in, is when you're constantly putting things out and you're putting energy out into the ether, you can constantly change and switch directions, and you're very, flexible and mobile in what you do, because that's what you're doing all day. You're getting new information, either visually, audible, whatever it may be, and then you're creating something from it. And every time you create something, it's going to be slightly different than the way before, rather than just consuming the same things over and over and over again. People have their favorite order from the Coastbrah fast food. They have their favorite movie or show that they watch on repeat. And it's just these like safe habits that they go on the consuming cycle. It's like a little hamster wheel that they continuously consume, rather than, they're expanding like tree of creation where they can branch out a 1,000 different ways. But they just have to plant that seed first and start really focusing on that creative energy rather than spending that time on that consumption. Does that make sense? What I put
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It was interesting. Yeah.
And then with where you're at, like now, like what's the sort of plan for you? So, or for the guys that are listening and don't kind of know, give us like a little like a background about where you're at right now, what you're doing, kind of what your specialties sort of are.
Okay, so I've been working out and training for almost my whole life, and like 5 years ago, I started doing more weightlifting in the gym, and for the last year or so, I'm taking the health issue more more serious, and I've been exploring and learning a lot of how you can actually be healthy while training, and how you can maximize your physique and also your looks and how you feel, your energy levels. So I've done a lot of research and applied all of those things to my current lifestyle. And now I'm teaching others to do the same, and how and they can like make a shortcut so they don't have to do all the reading themselves, and I can just show them, and I will teach them how to become the best version of themselves. So I will teach them how to become healthier, stronger, or whatever they want to achieve. So it's like individual coaching.
Right, that's cool, man. And we had a workout session in Sweden when I was up there for midsummer, right? And Eric's an absolute beast in the gym. Amazing physique and things like that. So obviously you kind of have a really good grasp on the health and the fitness side of things, right? And I want to kind of ask, like, how did that evolve to the point where you're at now, where you basically have like a mastery on these fundamental kind of aspects of health? Like what was that transition like? For me, it was, very bro science sort of stuff. When I was starting out, obviously over a decade ago, with gym training, like you were saying, working out, doing that sort of stuff, and then slowly kind of morphing into the health side and really seeing that truth of, your light and how the light affects your health, your hormonal cycles throughout the day, your food that you eat, everything that you're doing, the toxin exposure, everything. And more aligning with the natural side of things rather than going down, say, like the bodybuilding route, and I'm curious, like, how did that transition go on your side?
Yeah, so for me it started with as you did, like the bro split, and you're taking pre-workout every session, you're blasting like 800-900 milligrams of caffeine, and eating chicken and rice and broccoli. Didn't think about my sleep, didn't care about my health. And then I started to notice, like, some things you eat can affect your hormones. Like this typical thing you eat it affects your testosterone. Let's say that's the most usual hormone that you talk about. So I was starting to getting interested in how to optimize the hormones, because the higher T levels, the better muscle building. Um, so I started to read about that, and my friend also is really interested. So we're starting sending each other things and information, and then I sort of got into the health industry pretty quick. So I started to read a lot about all the things you can do for your health. The light environment, the minerals, food, everything. So it was like the hormones that interested me, so that I wanted to change my lifestyle completely.
Yeah, that's the, and it's so beneficial what you said there as well, is you had a friend, right? And that's like so important, especially when you're like kind of starting out, is having someone that you can kind of bounce back and forth with, and you can discover things together and have that almost competitiveness amongst one another, whether that's with your training, whether that's with knowledge, whether that's with what books you're reading, whatever, who can read the book the fastest and retain the most information, it's really, really beneficial to have, especially among guys, is that camaraderie between, you and a buddy, or maybe like a whole group of guys, to have that support network to make sure, both of you are kind of going on that trajectory. And, you can only read one book at a time. Like, or you can read multiple books at a time, but at the one specific moment in time, you can only read one book. But your buddy can be reading another book, right? And then you guys can swap notes, and you can actually gain information in a much faster way and much more digestible way when you have multiple people kind of working towards that same goal of trying to figure out what is true about, like you said, testosterone production, right? And it is a massive benefit to have that friend, and most people, they really struggle. Most of the people I talk to, and I talk to a lot of people about health and things, and most of them feel very isolated, in terms of they're the only person that they know of in their small town in rural Italy, or on the west coast of California or something. They're the only person that they know of that is interested in this more so health side of things. Obviously, there's fitness people, there's gyms everywhere, but really focusing on the health side, people find it very, very isolating. But I think a great thing that sort of just happened is, probably everyone listening to this knows this, and I'm sure you know this as well, about, the US election. It just got, somewhat finalized, and having Robert F. Kennedy coming in with, his stance on health, it aligns greatly to mine, and I'm guessing to yours as well, right? Whereas basically reduce, the hold that the pharmaceutical industry has on people, right? And treating chronic illnesses, rather than treating symptoms of chronic illness, basically rewind that and treat it preemptively treat people before they actually get sick, so they never do get sick. And taking that massive stance on it, I feel like it's going to elevate the public consciousness of health to a level that we haven't ever seen. Because basically, what sort of happens in the US, that kind of trickles out to the rest of the Western world, right? And then when people in the US at the public consciousness level are now going to be aware, at the very minimum, of oxidized vegetable oils or seed oils, about how they're actually harmful. That's like the first domino to fall in like a chain of 10,000. And people are going to start really digging into this and taking health into their own hands, rather than trying to rely on the system that's been in place for so long. And we can see that system doesn't work, right? So it's going to be a big shift, I feel, in the public consciousness, and coming into next year and then beyond, over the next, 4 years, and hopefully further. people are really going to start to nail in on their health and start to take agency about their health. So I feel like these guys that do feel isolated at the moment, they're just slightly ahead of the curve, and it's going to explode in a massive way. This whole health stuff that we talk about, I talk about, that you talk about, of how to actually get healthy the natural way, rather than trying to, always go to surgery as the only fix for a joint issue, or always going to a prescription pill when you have back pain or anything like that, and really focusing on health rather than, treatment of symptoms. I feel like it's going to be a massive issue, and so many people are going to have that switch, and they're going to be able to see so many more people in their community that they can now relate to on this health subject. And I feel like that isolation is really going to go away in the next year, big time. And people will have that opportunity that you did, like what you're talking about when you're starting out, and you had that buddy to kind of bounce things back and forth. Well, I feel like that's going to be such a massive positive improvement for the global consciousness about health.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's about time that it happens, because I heard some study that it was like
totally right.
70% of the US people are having some prescription drug or something like that. And it has to stop. Like, we don't need...
It's crazy. It's crazy, dude. It's on average, every American takes 4 prescription pills a day. So
it's insane.
There's 330 million people in America, or 350 million if you're counting illegal people, so say 300 million, right? And then times that by 4, that's how many pills are being taken per day. And then times it by 365, that's how many pills are being manufactured each year just for consumption in the US, right? It's absolutely outrageous, right? And sure, pharmaceutical intervention has a place, right? And it's only very recently, or before our lifetime, but in the grand scheme of things, only very recently has medicine become about treating chronic illnesses rather than treating an acute issue. Say you break your arm, right, and you need anesthetic or something like that. That used to be what medicine basically was. It was treating these acute things that happen on the spot to make sure you didn't die, you weren't, crazy on pain or anything like that. But now it's switched, and they figured out a way to treat chronic illnesses. And these chronic illnesses didn't used to be a thing at all. It's just all from the lifestyle that people live. And it's really, really harmful to everyone, basically, is that massive switch from medicine treating acute issues. Say you have an infection, and they need to give you antibiotics or something like that. And I'm not going to say that that's the best thing to always do, but sometimes, okay. But now it's, you're overweight. Let's give you semaglutide, or Ozempic, and let's give you those injections for the next 2 years. And it's treating a issue that's caused by lifestyle chronically, long term, and ideally for the rest of people's lives. And that's what it's really switched to. And seeing that switch back, like you said, it's about time that this happened, because this has been wreaking havoc on people's lives basically since they switched it, and it's got worse and worse and worse and worse. Like, there's another a crazy thing is in the 1950s in America, 1 in 50 people had type 2 diabetes, right? And now 50% of the population have type 2 diabetes or pre-diabetes. So they're on their way to diabetes, right? And it's all their lifestyle. It's all the food that they eat. It's all the fluorescent lights and their light exposure, their lack of movement, everything being at your fingertips, that instant entertainment, that consumption lifestyle that we were kind of talking about earlier. That's really what's driving all of this stuff. So it's amazing that it's having that switch, and it's such a beneficial thing to see coming into that public consciousness, right?
Yeah. And it's interesting because the doctors in Sweden not only don't ask about what we eat and what we consume when we go to the doctors, but also they recommend like these vegetable oils, and they give papers out
Yeah.
that says that vegetable oil is good and you should change away. You should take out butter and natural olive oils and replace them with the healthy seed oils. And it's crazy how doctors that's supposed to save your life is actually killing you.
Exactly. It's massively been co-opted by that pharmaceutical industry, right? And the food industry is, they've told the doctors their entire life that this is good, right? And doctors are typically pretty busy. They know how to read studies. They know how to analyze data, but typically they're not analyzing, nutrition data and what the root cause of these issues are. It's more so they're not taught to do that. They're not taught to find root cause issues of problems. They're taught, okay, this is the issue. How do we treat that issue, right? And that's what majority of their training is. Which again, it's a good thing to do and understand how to treat acute, problems, which is originally what they were there to do. They were there to help, heal people when they had, they cut themselves badly and they needed to stop the bleeding and they had an infection and how to fix that, right? But now they've just been completely psyoped by this food industry or these very surface level studies that basically imply that the food pyramid is good, that everything that I've been told over the last 50 years is also good. And then when anyone comes out to challenge them, it's this massive, doctors are put on like a pedestal in society. And, for typically a good reason. You need doctors, right? You need people to treat these people that have these acute problems. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Like, doctors are great, right? We need more doctors basically everywhere. But I feel like they should also be taught, how to actually fix the root cause of these issues. And that's why you see a massive rise at the moment, especially in the US, of naturopathic, practitioners and people that are actually more focused on the root cause of these issues. And that's why you see this massive rise in individual, health experts, where people are actually sharing what they've seen work for themselves and work for friends or family or even clients, and then sharing that knowledge at a mass scale online, rather than the only, authority on health being your local general practitioner or GP or doctor, family doctor, right? That's no longer the only authority on health. It's now, the schizo guy on Twitter is actually an authority on health. And 95% of the time, they would give you better advice to fix your health than what your local family doctor would give. Unless you obviously have a really, in the know doctor that is consistently staying up to date on what actually does work, and they haven't been fully captured by their medical system and being punished for questioning the medical system, because there's a lot of that as well.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of stories where they're questioning if it's really good to give the advice to change to seed oils or whatever it may be, and then the doctors will be they will be what's it called? They will be out of jobs because they are questioning the system and what they've been told. So I've seen a lot of examples
right?
of that.
And that's and that's what we should encourage, is more questioning of every system, right? More, because that's what, like, this is a really weird thing is people get labeled science deniers, right? And you saw this in massive scale for obviously the COVID vaccines and things, but they all ended up being correct, right? But they were silent. Everyone was silenced for being a science denier, right? If you go against the science, which is now taken as fact, you're labeled like you're a Nazi or something like that, right? And you're really frowned upon. At least it's being pushed by society that you're frowned upon for questioning science, when that's what science is. You're supposed to question the science. and see if it can be proved a different way, whether that's anecdotally with yourself, on friends, or with an actual study, right? But studies as well, you can find a study to support any argument that you deem fit. You can find a study that says the Earth's flat. You can find a study that says the Earth's a donut. You can find a study that says the Earth's a square, right? You can find studies to prove any point. So it sort of dilutes the authority that studies actually have, but people still would rather trust a study and a piece of paper than what they see with their own eyes, right? Or what people actually see with their own eyes. They would rather trust what some website says is what is fact, and then they're not allowed to question that fact at all. And I feel like that's a massive issue that's really being ramped up since COVID. Is you're not allowed to question the science at all, and if you do, you're a science denier, and you get labeled in that way. And like you said, doctors lose their job because they're questioning the science, which is what science is. You're trying to figure out what is actually true, right? And you want to question these things, and it should be encouraged at a mass scale. You should question everything in your life. You should question whether that's the best route to take to work, and you might find, oh, there's actually a shortcut here. And then everyone will tell you, no, that's the best route to drive. You've got to drive that way the whole time. And then you try to tell them, no, this is the shortcut. And they'll be like, no, you're a route denier. You're a driving denier. Google Maps denier. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like this. It's almost like a religion is the science now, of you're not allowed to question anything. And I think it really counterproductive to actually figuring out what is true. And especially in a field of like nutrition or, just the human body. It's so complex and there's so many variables. It's almost impossible to have an accurate study to really say this was the only thing that changed the outcome of XYZ, because you'd have to have them in such a controlled environment, a controlled light environment, a controlled temperature environment for long periods of time, a controlled, obviously food intake, everything that they eat, exercise, breathing, everything that the people are doing. It's very hard to control all of these variables, but then people love to point the finger to, oh, this is the issue, or this is the saving grace of XYZ issue, whereas there's so many variables at play. And I feel like that's lost on a lot of people when they do get into health, is the hyper focus on nutrition, right? And nutrition is a massive part, obviously. And you want to eat good food, but people can thrive eating very different foods and feel amazing, perform amazing, and look great. And people get in these camps of what food they deem is good and what food is bad. And that's all people really focus on is the food, and they ignore everything else that they do during the day. But your health isn't just from what you eat. Your health is from a accumulation of every single action that you do, how you're breathing, how you look at your phone in the morning first thing, or do you go outside first thing and go for a quick walk? Like there's so many other little things that come into play rather than just nutrition. I feel like that's a thing people love to hyper focus on. And the same with testosterone. People hyper focus on testosterone, like that's the be all end all of the male endocrine system. But obviously there's so much more to it, and to actually getting those high T symptoms or that high testosterone lifestyle that many men are really struggling with in the modern world. There's a lot more to it than just, optimizing for testosterone.
Yeah. Yes, we all should start ask ourselves more questions like, is this healthy for me? Why is this person saying this to me? What is the agenda behind everything? And the agenda behind the facts that I'm reading. And if we start asking those questions, we might find an answer that is the opposite of what someone is telling us. So we need to be careful about what we're reading and what we're believing.
100%. And even what I say, like, don't take everything I say as fact. I highly encourage people to try prove everything that I say wrong, and we need more people trying to prove each other wrong, and more people trying to figure out what is true. And then that way we can get to the truth the fastest way possible. But if I say, no, this is completely right, everything I do is 100% perfect, you're not allowed to try anything else, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe I'm wrong. And it's just a stupid way to look at it.
Yeah,
Is
and if someone
is
tells us that,
discouraging.
sorry,
No, you go.
um, and nah, I forgot. Go you, go you.
I'm pretty sure I did. I was basically saying, like, people discouraging exploration is going to be a net negative in the long run. You know, it's definitely not an ideal thing, and you want people to be trying as many different weird things as possible, no matter how stupid it may sound. Because even if it is stupid and it is wrong, you'll find out by then doing it. You know, maybe
Yeah,
I don't know, they do something that's really kind of against the grain, and it's proved to be, okay, that actually caused them to get this condition or this injury or these sort of issues. At least now we know, right? And the more people doing these things, the more reliable data points that we're going to get on this, and we can kind of correlate things together,
yeah, and
which
we're
is
looking for the,
really a good way.
yeah, we're looking for the truth. So what we believe is the truth may not be correct, and if it's not, then uh, it's nice to have someone that tells me otherwise, because then I know
Hmm.
the actual truth, and I will be better off. So just you can't just ignore all what everyone else says. You need to take in you need to listen to others also, and make your own judgments about what where they got their information, and maybe they're right, and then you will be better off too. So
Yeah, 100%. And another thing to remember with this as well is there's that bio individuality. Like, what works for me might not work for Eric, you know,
yeah,
and what works for Eric might not work for John down the street, you know, because people are different and their environment is different. So what maybe Eric does when he's in Sweden might be different to make him feel his best in Sweden, might be different than what he does in Thailand to make him feel his best there, you know. And that's a really important thing to remember, is just because someone's doing something and it's working for them doesn't mean necessarily that it's going to work for you. So you need to find not just the fundamental truth about something, which in my opinion, there are fundamental truths, but there's also like individualistic truths, like what is actually true to you and for you and what works for you. Because there might be underlying things that may stop a specific food being absorbed or a specific vitamin being absorbed for you, whereas for Eric, you know, for you, it might be completely fine. So again, it's like figuring out what is your truth with the health and with everything else, right? But kind of sticking on health here is finding out what that truth is for you, what works for you, and then if can that be replicated? You know, can that be replicated with your friends? Can that be replicated with someone on the other side of the world? Can that be replicated with women as well as them? You know, and then this way we can find, okay, it's not just your individual truth, but it might be a fundamental truth across that applies to everyone. So a good example of this is your light environment. I feel like that's a fundamental truth. The more natural light exposure you get, it's going to correlate with your energy and how well you sleep. You know, there's like these fundamental truths that do apply for everyone. But say some people that have like a gene mutation, they can't methylate folate properly or folic acid. So they have to have folate rather than folic acid. So for some person, it might be okay to have enriched wheat with folic acid in it, but then for other people, it might not be, you know? So it needs to have that bio individuality of your protocol or what you're doing. And that's why I feel it's so important to have someone like Derek that understands these things and knows what works for him might not work for you, you know, and be able to help guide you through this transitional phase if you're just new to health, or if you're, you know, well versed in all your fitness stuff and you're wanting to more jump into the health and energy side of things. Having someone to sort of guide you through that, and then even if it's not Eric, even if it's someone else, you know, but having someone to guide you through that process is really, really beneficial. that understands that what works for, John doesn't work for James, and understanding that people are different, and protocols and what people do and how they live their life, it's different for everyone. So we need to make sure that the fundamental truths are abided by, and then these individualistic truths are abided by as well for that specific person, so they can reach their, health potential and maintain that long term.
Yeah, and it's the same thing like in the gym. You notice that some things work for me and some things work for another person because our fibers are aligned at slight difference, and then exercise that works for me
Exactly.
isn't perfect for someone else, and the repetitions and how many and the weights. So you need to you need to be specific about what you're doing to your body, and not taking just like in the biggest bodybuilder and do exactly what he does, because that may not work for you.
Yeah, and that's a great example as well. And even like when we're training together, you're like ridiculously tall. You're like 7 foot tall or something. You're way taller than me, right? So like the way that I would set things up is going to be different than the way you would need to set things up just with, say, our training, and you can extrapolate that idea to everything that you do. It's different people need different things, and it's super important to understand that when you are going through this sort of process.
Yeah.
No, that's good, man. We're coming up on around an hour. I got to run pretty soon. I have a meeting up with a buddy at the gym here in Bali.
Nice.
Very shortly. Do we have any last? Dude, it's crazy training in you probably seen the same as well, right? Training in Thailand, the same when I was in Thailand. It's like the humidity is just such a different training session, right? It's so much more taxing on the nervous system because you're sweating so much, right?
Yeah.
Because it's so humid and hot.
Yeah.
Have you found like a cool like outdoor gym there yet?
No, not yet. We've been all over the place every day, so I haven't found. I've just trained at the hotel gym, right now. But I'm gonna find a nice sparring session at some Thai boxing gym, and
Nice.
now I'm gonna do some weights too.
Yeah, nice, dude, nice. Yeah, the Muay Thai over there, because most of them are like outside, they just have like a little roof and no walls, and then like a ring. It's a crazy workout. It's really good. It's good to get a different look on like a typical bodybuilding workout or strength training workout, like seeing how capable you are across all planes of motion, how long you can stay on your feet, bouncing around, just like little stuff, or skipping or whatever, or on the bag or sparring, whatever it may be. It's really good to try these different things out, and be capable across everything. It's really beneficial. And one thing I also wanted to ask is, when I was in Thailand, everyone's short, right? Because obviously they're Southeast Asian. Generally, they're shorter people, right? And everyone would look at me like, holy shit, you're super tall. So I'm wondering how they look at you. They must be like, what the heck is this guy?
Yeah. The local Thailand people,
Nordic super soldier coming through,
Yeah. The local people here, they look up and like open their eyes a bit.
Yeah.
And then but there's a lot of tourists here, and they're tall too. But the most of the people think it's a monster that's coming down the road. Everything is small too, like the tuk-tuk that you go to the beach with. They're so small, you have to break your neck or something to get in.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty funny. And even like the mirrors in the bathroom and stuff, they're all like super low, so you can't even, like your eye level, it's like way above. It's like a foot above where the mirror is. It's just like funny things like that. It's like built for smaller people. Obviously, it's quite funny to see. Obviously, compared to Sweden, where everyone was like taller than me, it was crazy. But yeah, it would be a bit of a cultural shock for you, I think. But anyway, man, it was really good to catch up with you again, and speak with you at least virtually. Hopefully, see you again in person very soon. maybe after your Thailand trip or something like that. But yeah, really, really good to speak with you again. If you can let, guys listening know again where to find you, where to reach out, they want to, chat with you or maybe even look at help from, on their health journey and maybe get a second opinion on something, where could they find you at?
Of course, you can find me at my Instagram, TikTok, and X. And my name is HolisticEric with the C. And you can just DM me or just comment on any post, and I will answer you shortly, and we can have a discussion.
Awesome, dude. Cool. Well, thank you everyone for listening again to another episode of the Vitality Blueprint, and we'll catch you again on the next one.